Yeah, it was a long time ago. Yeah, I started, and there was like 1,000 lots and everything. There was a scam, and it was this big thing where. But anyway, we came down here. We had looked at them originally. Lots were $150,000 to $200,000. When we came down and moved here permanent, they were $4,000 and $6,000. So we bought a couple of them, and then we sold them for pretty decent money. Right. What do you do? Well, I wasn't. It's a pleasure. And now? Good for you.
I've got to do this on this property and on this property.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
We originally were from Pittsburgh, and so I'm kind of in the same boat. I still have my company, plus somebody running it, but I don't really do too much with it. I decided that I was going to write. Okay. So I've written 2 books that were published, and working on a 3rd. So just keep busy.
How long have you been doing that?
Well, we vacationed here for about 5 years, and owned a vacation house. And then we've been here about 10.
Okay. Yeah, we've been here.
I remember when we first came down, it was like October, November, December, nobody was here. Just ghost town. Right. Now it's like, what's going on? Right. This is gone away.
I'm thinking about it.
How you doing?
Who do they talk?
How you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you.
Yeah.
What's wrong?
That's what you found. You must speak for 3 minutes. It's on the desk.
Oh, you signed up on that? That means you signed up to speak?
Yes, for 3 minutes.
I guess I signed up.
I think they told everybody to sign up when they walked in. You can speak. I'm not speaking. I'm in phase like 4. 2, 3, 4. Any beach, I mean, I'm saying it's not you're not going 5 days ago.
I mean, they always lock them up to, you know, to remove the lights, because we voted.
I thought they were gonna try to get.
So those are the people that really come see, because they know you voted. They're gonna try to get that change. But, good piece of paper. I've only campaigned 2 people.
Although there was a plan to do something to take you. Every year you come, it's always done.
Because a friend of mine is president of the Young Republicans in Cabarrus County or something, and I just went to help
The
him.
biggest problem is
And
give us any money.
there was about 7% of them still don't want to give us that in the primary ballot, and I loved all of that. It's kind of tours and all that. That's it. That's it. Well, I guess we got to tackle this. Done activist stuff.
We're never going to solve it. Yeah, and you know, for this what's the big deal with the growing?
We just took it over. In a year, it just. Well, there were 3 more people.
But he had this.
So they stayed.
He was studying.
And is that the right? They're probably, you know,
Getting additional training.
they just don't have enough surgery. And so it's going to protect So in other words, it's going to never get right. Absolutely. They should want to buy out for those houses, sure.
And they were,
I mean, they're really nice. Does anybody actually still use it? I believe
that we pay for each other. So we were fighting that, we were going to vote to.
I'm guessing this is going to be a tense meeting.
And so for
I mean, it really makes sense.
Burgess is going to sit. We'll sit up front.
Yes, we do.
We'll sit up there.
I move that we vote to remove these 2 and the other 3 are on there. And that motion passed. And he should have said, what's the one guy, he's an old guy.
This isn't reserved.
No, it isn't. No, it's reserved for you.
He keeps saying, he can be not reserved.
Right here.
Got it. He's still flying. He's only a couple then you get rid of it.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Might be able to put 2 people in here.
How are you today?
I'm good, and you?
Good.
Here this last week,
Now, the internet, 2 miles away. And it turns out he has a house here. And we're only a mile apart here. Our houses are so close together. So it's kind of weird. It both ends. Well, it's sounds called the cause of the wind. We just don't get, honestly, we don't get that much wind. We're here in the winter. It's still 15 miles an hour every day. And it's cold. I mean, we went to Florida. They would be up higher. We did the opposite. We went out where there's snow. We went where there was sun. And we went to Florida back in the middle of February. And down Marco Island, it was 80, it was low 80s, and nice gym. So you have 15 miles an hour wind and 60 miles an hour. That's night freezing. It's like, it's like this place looks like it's so much place. We're kind of stuck here.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. It's really tough.
It's conceivable like it's always. I don't like that. I can't spend 12 or 14 hours in the car which probably is
Story once about
You're right. I wasn't really. It's very warm in here. I'm glad to see you here. That's dogs and they're all on our side. They're all on our side. I feel like I'm one little ring.
There wasn't near this many. There might have been a Saturday meeting that we had 2 weeks ago, I think. There might have been 10 people here. Parked on the road. I parked down there by the golf carts, but the doors were open. I mean, I don't have anybody blocked in. And I even got here early.
People are here. They
Interesting. Nice to see you again.
How are you? We don't have our hats on.
I know. I've been waving at Terry, and she's just kind of looking at me like,
I know. I'm like, I put my contact
know
over.
her, but I don't think I know her. She doesn't look the same.
Yes. It's all right. The question is, paramount number 6. I think I got some looking glasses. Here you go. They're totally nice.
Well, it looks like you're talking about the annexation, and then they're saying North South project. Well, I kind of do, because I want to know what they're planning on doing. If they're going to annex, I want to know what they're doing to the
That's right.
Well, I'll go trade one. Excuse me. Only way.
Welcome. If we could all just silence, we're going to kick off our special meeting today, which is Friday, November 11th, for the Board of Aldermen. We wanted to welcome Representative Shepard. This is really his meeting. He wanted to come and be able to speak with you all who have questions about annexation. And I also wanted to explain why this was sent out as a special meeting and noticed as a meeting, and that is because there's a quorum of board members here. So there was some confusion about that, but that is why it's noticed as a meeting. We are here to support Representative Shepard, and we graciously are thankful that he's come this way and that you all have shown up to be able to listen and be able to ask some questions. So please make sure your cell phones are set to silent or vibrate. You will have a comment period. The comment period will be limited to 3 minutes and must be relative to an issue which we're discussing today. And with that, I'm going to ask Alderman Swantek to do the invocation.
Please stand.
Bless this town, and may it remain a beautiful and friendly place to live. We pray that this board makes fair and informed decisions today. We also pray that our police officers, firefighters, and members of our armed forces here and around the world remain safe as they risk so much for our security. We also pray that our town be spared the ravages of hurricanes and all natural disasters, and that everyone associated with the town may be safe and secure. Amen. Pledge allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
So the next item would be for approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. And so I'm going to turn it over to Representative Shepard. I'm not sure if you want to stand here, as I said, with your microphone on, or at the podium, whatever, however you want to do it, sir.
It's fine. I'll stand here. Thank you all for the opportunity to come and be with you today. I know that we've been getting a lot of emails and so forth about questions about different situations. So we're here to do that today, to talk with you. I'd like to thank your mayor, your board of aldermen, and all of you for coming today and being a part of this. There are a lot of questions out there about de-annexation, annexation, and so forth. With me today is Speaker Moore's staff, 3 of the members of the staff. We could not make it without them. These guys are experts in all sorts of fields, from transportation, state government, local government. And Corey Bryson was here in the Marine Corps, stationed here several years ago. He's from North Carolina. Now he's on the Speaker's staff. Corey, would you stand, and if you would introduce the rest of the staff for us so that everybody knows who you are. And they're here to help answer questions as well. Go ahead, Corey.
Yes, sir. My name is Corey Bryson. I'm the Senior Policy Staffer for Speaker Tim Moore. With me, I have 2 of my colleagues, Grace Odom and Bill Pittman, who also serve as policy staffers for the Speaker. We serve as pleasure of the Speaker and Representative Shepard. So any questions y'all have, we'll happy to answer.
So we're going to work together to try to answer some questions and solve some issues. The first thing I wanted to share with you, I've been getting a lot of emails about de-annexation. I guess there's some people on part of the island that are seeking to be de-annexed, attempting to maybe be annexed by Surf City. And my reason for being here is not to take a side one way or another, but to give you what the state law says, what is legal, what's not legal, what you can and can't do. I'll go ahead and start with some of our emails are coming, and they're going to Speaker Tillis, and they're going to Congressman Murphy, and all sorts of people. In North Carolina, the only people that can de-annex anything is the North Carolina General Assembly. The federal government, the local county commissioners cannot de-annex anything. It has to go to the North Carolina General Assembly and be approved by the North Carolina General Assembly. And there are specifics that go along with that in order to do that. Also, annexation changed. In 2011, when I was first elected, there were some municipalities in mostly urban areas that were taking advantage of. They had the power to go out and annex any area, and the residents did not have any recourse whatsoever. I know locally there was a town that annexed a country club area. They already had water, sewer, they already had trash pickup. But the city went out and took them. They had no recourse because they wanted the extra tax base. So in 2011, the North Carolina General Assembly made a movement to that 60% or 100% of the residents have to be in agreement to be annexed, which protected the property owners and the taxpayers from somebody bullying their way and taking them in when they didn't want to be in, because they already had what they needed as far as government was concerned. So there are some specifics about who can be de-annexed. There's also specifics about if somebody wants to be annexed, they have to get 100% of the residents in agreement. So I want to just make that clear. Corey has got a lot of that information as well. So if it's okay, is there anyone here that's specifically concerned about that and how it applies, and then we can share those statutes and how they apply to being de-annexed and also being annexed? Anybody that would, if it's okay, Mayor?
It's absolutely fine. I would just request if anybody wants to ask a question, if they could come up to the podium and let us have their name and address, so that we'll be able to make sure we have records for who came.
Do I need to come up, or can
Yes,
I
sir. Can you come up to
Yeah,
the
she's
podium?
asking everybody to come to the podium because they're recording this as an open meeting.
Okay.
My name is George Fieser, at 106 Seashore Drive in Phase 5, and I'm here to support the annexation. The reason that I want to talk about that is not to discredit anything that's gone on. We're just a different community in that phase than other parts of the town. And we had an opportunity to have protection for the next 50 years. We didn't take that. We would like to annex to Surf City to enjoy 50 years of beach. And it's not just me, but it's the state of North Carolina that benefits number one industry, tourism. If we lose our beach, we lose our money from the tourists. So we want to participate in that. My question to you is, the General Assembly is the only body that can change that. What are the mechanics, or what is the path to make that happen?
You would have to, Corey, do you want to share what you've got in your statutes there?
Yes, sir.
And answer that question.
Yes, sir. So basically, there's 4 different ways that the city can be annexed.
Yeah, Corey, could you stand so everybody, just so everybody can hear you?
So there's just,
You're on the hot seat.
all right. So there's 4 different methods in which basically property can be annexed into a municipality. And obviously the first step would be for citizens to be de-annexed. But the 4 ways that you can be annexed is through voluntary annexation, satellite annexation, and involuntary annexation, which is extremely rare, and then also a local act of the General Assembly, but that doesn't require a petition. Basically what would have to happen here would be a voluntary annexation. So basically you would have to have the members of the community that want to annex into, I guess Surf City I believe is what we're talking about, would have to have basically support from Surf City saying that they're willing to accept them, because there's things that would be lost as far as like fire service, water. I'm not sure if you're on water and sewer here. I'm not sure how that works. Also police and those kind of services. And also to think about, in some instances, in cases out west, there's been places that have de-annexed away from a town, and they've ended up losing fire protection, like as far as insurance goes as well, just based off of the people not having the services provided by the town or municipality they already live in. So that's what we're kind of looking at here. That would be the step that would have to be taken first, is the de-annex part. And I believe that would have to be 100% of the citizens willing to de-annex from North Topsail to go to Surf City.
And Surf City would have to agree to take those citizens. And they may not want to take it when they look at the debt and other things that may go with some of that. So, but that is the straight up, that's what the law says in the statutes.
Is that on an individual basis, or does it have to be a contiguous part of the town, or can you annex by yourself?
So it would have to be contiguous. Basically, it would have to be contiguous. So you couldn't do what is called a satellite annexation, where, let's say you want to annex, but your neighbor doesn't want to annex. Like, it would have to be, whichever part of that area would have to be 100%.
100%.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
My name is Reed Abernathy. I live in the village of Stump Sound in North Topsail Beach. Thank you, Representative Shepard, for coming and listening to us. You also said that it could be an act of the General Assembly, and it doesn't require 100% of the people, if I'm not mistaken. Is that true? Because that's an onerous thing to get 100% of the people. But can the General Assembly vote without having all of the people be involved?
There has to be a petition. And the reason for that was because so many of your larger cities and towns out west were going out and grabbing them 200 acres at a time because they wanted the tax value. And the residents in those areas had no recourse. So the General Assembly made it tougher for larger municipalities to go out and take people's property and annex them. They gave them a right to say yes or no. Property owners had no rights prior to this. So what this is saying is that those residents have to be in agreement in order for that to happen. It's similar to like, it has to be contiguous also.
So if 10,000 property owners want to be annexed and one property owner doesn't, it cannot be annexed. That's what you're telling us.
That's what the law says.
There you go, folks.
And you know what? I'll share something that's similar to that, and we'll clarify that. We'll go back and ask our legal staff. We'll clarify that. If you have a dirt road and you're trying to get the state DOT to take it, of course, it has to meet certain standards in order for DOT to take that road, and there's laws concerning that. One property owner can keep DOT from taking that road.
Even the property owners, if they're not full-time residents, they don't get to vote.
Ma'am, if you would like to speak, if you could come up to the podium next, then we'll hear from this gentleman first who's there.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for being here today and setting up this meeting. My name is Ed Sapinski. I'm at 173 Old Village Lane, and I support the annexation. So the question I have is, you're talking about 100% participation. Are we talking about registered voters, or are we talking about property owners?
I believe the law is clear that they have to live in that area.
So we're talking
If you live
full-time
in
residents.
Cary, if you're Cary, you can't determine what happens here if you're not a resident here.
So you have to be a full-time resident.
Full-time resident.
Thank you.
Changes everything, doesn't it?
Anyone else have a question, sir?
That was easy.
Ma'am? Yes, sir. Do you want to come up?
My name is Dennis Burgard, and I've got a property at Shipwatch. So my question has to do with this entity, which would be North Topsail Beach. And that is any entity, including Surf City, anywhere, you function based on your tax base. What happens to the tax base of North Topsail Beach if this annexation were to occur? And does this end up affecting North Topsail Beach to the point that financially it can't even really operate as it should as an entity?
I won't answer that. I'll let the mayor answer that.
I don't know if that's been looked at, but
Sir, actually, we have not looked at the financial impact of the annexation. We have been focused as a board on just making the best decisions we can for the town.
Sure.
The town manager will be going through all the sand that project that's already affecting this specific area that would like to be annexed. So no, we have not looked at that. And if it were to get 100% support from all the registered voters, that is something that we would have to look at.
I would suggest you look at it prior to that. The only reason I say that is everybody would want to remove themselves from something. You know, we could literally take North Topsail and say, let it just be the quarter mile at the south end. And everybody else doesn't want to be a part of that, because that's where the problem lies, right? That's the problems at the far north end. So the solution to the problem isn't to have everybody cut themselves off from the issue. That doesn't solve anything, because it will come your way eventually. If you don't do something, it will keep coming. So I would think it'd be smart for this board to take a look at what would happen if this group of people left and your tax base disappeared. How does that affect your ability to solve your problem at the north end?
Well, and certainly we can take that under advisement, but I will respectfully disagree that the problem is at the very north end. We have challenges through the whole town of North Topsail Beach.
Correct.
So there are challenges as it results to those phases in the middle that are in the Cobra zone, such as Shipwatch. So it's not just the north end. This is not a battle between the north end and the south end, as some residents or owners are trying to make it out to be. It's truly not. It's really just what would be the best thing for North Topsail Beach.
Gotcha.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it, though.
I have participated in doing some de-annexation of businesses with Jacksonville. But normally, we get a letter from the city manager or from the board there, and they agree to it. We don't just do it because somebody asked to do it. I mean, if you did that, you'd have people all over the state trying to be de-annexed because their taxes went up or for other reasons. But anyway.
Anyway, I have a follow-up question. What procedure do I have to go through to get all the registered voters in Phase 5?
If you are looking for the name and contact information for the registered voters in North Carolina, I believe that you could just you can just go online to the voters website in Onslow County, and they can provide that to you.
Or you could go down to the Board of Elections, and they could pull up that for you as well.
Okay, great.
That's public information.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have another hand? Yes, sir.
Yeah, can I speak here?
Yes, sir.
It sounds like the mechanics is a two-phase process. One is de-annexation first, And if you go through the path on that, and then, I think you covered annexation, but it sounds like we need approval to be de-annexed first, am I correct?
Right. The
And
General
what is that
Assembly
process?
has to do that. And normally, we go to the municipality and to the residents. And that vote could go either way in the General Assembly, because everybody in the General Assembly have to approve it, as well as the Senate and so forth. And the thing to think about too, if you're de-annexed and North Topsail cuts the water, the sewer and everything off, I mean, there's a lot to look at, and that's my purpose for being here. I wanted everybody to understand it's just not that simple a process as far as our statutes in the state government, and as also for local municipalities. So that's why we're here, to try to offer you some answers, and we'll be glad to, if you'll sign up on a sheet, we'll be glad to email you what information we have. If you want more information, if you want more reading material, I have enough, but anyway, I'll be glad to send it to you. It might help solve some of your questions. I will say this, your mayor, and I'm sure these Board of Aldermen, also Tom Leonard, when he was an alderman, we tried our best when it came to the engineering beach with your lobbyist, Connie Wilson, to get approval for that for North Topsail. We worked very hard, but we've got a lot of rules and so forth and statutes that are in place that prevent things. We were trying to get a 1 cent occupancy tax for North Topsail so that that money could be used to help with the project. In the House, on the House side, they have rules that prevent you from getting an occupancy tax other than what goes to the counties. With that being said, we worked our butts off, and they came to several committee meetings, and we had a lot of support, but we just couldn't get it over the edge because the tourism and lodging people want all that money to go into advertising and so on and so forth. My thing was, they made an exception for Charlotte years ago for the NASCAR museum. And I told these people, I said, this is the biggest draw for tourism we have in Onslow County. Other than military families coming to visit their families, North Topsail Beach is our biggest tourism draw in this county. So if we don't have a beach for them to come lay on and walk on and do things on, then what do we have? So that was my thing. I said, hey, we want to get this 1% occupancy tax so we can get our beaches built up and do those things, be a part of that project. Well, then when we started looking at the everything that was going on with North Topsail, you all have some debt that they've had before, and we wasn't sure when we couldn't get the occupancy tax if they could afford to do that project that the Corps of Engineers want to do. Now we're waiting to see if the Corps is going to approve the Surf City part of it, because that's not etched in stone yet. They wanted to do the whole project together, the Corps of Engineers did. So we're still waiting on that. But we have made some provisions that if they do not want to do that, we've tried to put some money aside in the NER fund to give $10 million to North Topsail to help them pay their debt that they've got, which may help them qualify in the future. So that is something we've worked real hard on. Unfortunately, we couldn't get all that we wanted, but I will say this, these guys came to all the committee meetings and they worked hard to get that for North Topsail along with Connie Wilson. But that rule as far as the occupancy tax, it's almost etched in stone. We can't quite get it over the hump. Hopefully in the future we will. The other thing I wanted to share with you is, and each county does things different. That's how they distribute those funds. I know in Pender County, they get 3%, and they give 3% to Surf City and North Topsail. Onslow County, I don't think they do that. I think it's, how much do you guys get?
Half.
Half. So anyway, that's where we're at. So, and some give it all to the beach, but that's not happening here. And I really have no control over that. That's a county decision as to what they do.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Burgess Allison. I support annexation. I support the Corps of Engineers project. I live at 119 South Bermuda Wind. My first main question is to the policy analyst who was talking about the 4 methods for getting annexation, and I thought that the 4th method through the state legislature did not require 100% votes. Getting 100% of anything in today's world is borders ludicrous. But the question is, can the state legislature do this without 100%?
To answer your question, I'm not sure.
We're gonna have to double check the statutes on that. Yeah.
About that. I'll find that answer out. And let y'all know.
I think the state has a huge interest in moving the Corps of Engineers project forward. The stunning success that the Corps of Engineers project in the Outer Banks showed exactly what a well-run, properly engineered project can bring. Better beaches, better buildings, better tourism, better business, a better tax base, and a benefit to the entire state. The Outer Banks have seen this success firsthand. The state of North Carolina has applauded that success, and the state legislature has seen the effects of this success for the entire state. Here on Topsail Island, sadly, we are really stuck with old town boundary lines that now stand in the way of moving this project forward. Together, Surf City and Phase 5, which are aligned along natural geographic boundaries and COBRA, could approve this project, which would benefit us and the entire state of North Carolina. I come back to the question that I think everybody has asked, which is, what's the process for moving forward? And frankly, I think that the state legislature, especially if there's a law that says you have to get 100% of every single voter to sign up to something, the state legislature can see the benefit of the Corps of Engineers project to everyone. My name is Burgess Allison, and I support the Corps of Engineers project, and I support annexation. My question really goes back to...
we'll pull that information and make sure we can clarify this. And in response to your comments, we agree totally. I don't think there's a person up here that doesn't agree, and I know we worked hard with your lobbyists to try to get that money for North Topsail Beach so they could continue to be a part of it. The next problem is when you're in debt, the local government committee in North Carolina, they have to agree that if you borrow money, it has to go before them, and if you have a certain percentage of debt, they normally don't approve you to go into more debt because it puts your people in a volatile situation. But I agree with you 100%. The engineered beach would be great. And if we can just find a way to get the funding and get that done. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the other occupancy tax, and the town here has debt already that has prevented them. And they don't have the sales tax revenue Surf City has. Surf City goes all the way on the other side of Hall Ridge. They've got the Lowe's, the Bojangles, all of that. North Topsail doesn't have those businesses here like Surf City's got, and it's a disadvantage to them. But I support what you're saying 100%. That engineered beach would be great. A jetty would be great because it would keep the sand on the beach and keep it out of the waterway, because right now our fishermen and shrimpers can't hardly get out of New River Inlet. Tom Tillis did approve $1.5 million and sent down to dredge out the inlet. Of course, that sand would come back over on the beach, but it doesn't stay out. It goes back in because you got to have something to prevent it. So a terminal going or a jetty would help in that respect also. But I support what you're saying. I think all these people here support that. It's just trying to find a way to fund it with the way things are.
And just to follow on that, I wish we had this type of support as we were going through the decision-making project with the federal project to start with. This board went through months and months of painstaking agony trying to basically figure out how we could afford to do it. There was not one board member who was against the project. It's just that the costs continued to escalate to the point where townwide we would have had to triple taxes to pay for that 4 miles of beach. Plus, as Representative Shepard said, we also had the challenge of the LGC, where they were not going to approve us to go into that type of debt when we still had outstanding debt in that area. So if you have been watching the board meetings, you will see that we have made huge strides in relieving the issues that we have with the debt associated to the LGC loan, that we had to try to continue to put ourselves in a better financial situation so that in the future, all of North Topsail Beach will be getting sand, not just one specific phase. So I just wanted you to know that there was not one board member who was against the federal project. It was when it got down to the money and how it would affect all of the taxpayers townwide, which is our job to look at everybody townwide, that's when it came to the conclusion that it was just not something we could afford. And it was not the initial dollars that the Corps had originally projected the project to be. I mean, it had just raised substantially to a point where it wasn't affordable. So.
And that's why we were trying to get that 1 cent occupancy tax, was to help pay for that project. And when the General Assembly said we could not do that, then we just were left with what we've got now. But I mean, everyone that I know worked tirelessly to try to get that passed.
I think Tom Leonard would like to speak. Tom, you can go next after this gentleman.
If I may?
Yes, sir.
My name is Robert Frank. I own at 141 and 145 South Bermuda Wind. I'm not a full-time resident, so I don't have a vote. I want to speak a minute to the tax situation. Last year, we had $250,000 of lodging receipts on my two houses during the summer. I live in the village of Stump Sound. I live a half mile north of the Surf City line. I live, paradoxically, right next to the Surf City campground. So you can see the geographical alignment. The thing is without the Phase 5 beach renourishment project, you are putting our properties at a severe disadvantage for rental income and property tax values, because a half mile south of me, you can then get a 500-foot beach, whereas we maybe have 50 to 100. So I did not see any consideration of the negative aspects of having not done the beach renourishment project. And I wanted to know if that passed the aldermen's minds when they were doing their evaluation.
Yes, sir, it did. It did pass our minds, but again, it got to a point of being a financial decision that had to be made.
Well, you're looking at substantially lower revenues in the future because of the devaluation of our properties in terms of attracting renters to support your lodging tax and also to support your property tax base.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Leonard, did you want to speak?
Tom Leonard, 218 Coastal Drive. Been a full-time resident of this town 20 years. Moved here on the 4th of February, 2002, so I can actually say I've been here over 20 years. I am against this move for many reasons. Most of you know, and probably everybody in this room knows, that I was on the board for the last 4 years and how hard this board worked to try to come to some level of making this project work without bankrupting the town. And we got to the point where it just wasn't feasible. We couldn't do it. We couldn't get there from here. We couldn't get there from here for the reason that Phil Shepard indicated, and thank you for being here today, Phil. The local government commission has to approve debt. They would not approve the level of debt that we needed. We would have had to raise everyone's property taxes in the town by 300%. Not just in the area that the beach project. And you can shake your head all you want, but it's a fact. In order to fund that project, we would have had to have raised the entire town's property taxes by 300%. We couldn't get there from here. Legally, we can't raise them by more than $1. Okay, and that's just stuff that I wanted to say based on what I'd heard since I got here. I've got some notes and some questions and some comments I'd like to roll through. The first thing is there are two major issues in that area that would be annexed that need to be addressed. Financial issues. One is the town in that area needs a new fire station. The other is that there's about $16 million worth of leftover debt from a 2014 beach project. And I know Kyle's here from Surf City, and I hope he's making notes, because if you get this part of the town annexed to you, you've got some things to do. There's some issues there, and there's a requirement for a firehouse, and there's a requirement for that debt. The second point is that the area proposed for annexation benefited from an engineered beach constructed in 2014 at a cost to the town's property owners of over $16 million. Town secured a USDA rural development loan to fund the project. It's now being repaid through the town's beach fund. All of the property owners in the town are paying for this project, not just the ones in the area that benefited from the project, but the entire town, because all of our taxes that go into the beach fund are paying off that loan. Now, because this is a engineered beach, the federal government through FEMA replenished the sand lost in that same area after Hurricane Matthew. The shoreline in this area is right now, as we speak, currently being replenished again as a result of loss of sand and dunes during Hurricane Florence. Okay, again, because the construction 2014 project was engineered to FEMA standards, the government has stepped in not just once, but twice to replace sand. So I want to make sure everyone's aware that the area in question here has benefited from 3 different shoreline restoration projects within the past 8 years. The 3.8 miles of shoreline in that Phase 5 area town, the area under consideration for annexation, which incidentally amounts to 33.9% of the town's shoreline, has, as a result of the 3 restoration project, received more sand than the remaining 7.4 miles and 66% of the town's 11.2 miles of shoreline. Okay? So aside from the fact that we have mostly absentee property owners feel they've been cheated out of a project somehow, why are we here discussing annexation? Why are we here discussing annexation? Maybe given the difference between how Onslow and Pender handle occupancy taxes, maybe the annexation we need to be here talking about is Pender County. Putting the whole island in Pender County. It would help us. Had we been in Pender County, we probably could have afforded that project. And I know that's a big one, and I'm sure you didn't expect me to drop that on you like that, Phil. But that's what you're here for. You know, it really bothers me. You know, I'm in Phase 1. I'm one of the guys and I'm not oceanfront, but I'm one of the people who, in the grand scheme of things, the groin, if we ever get it built, is really going to help. And, you know, if you want to get up and talk, you're more than likely to when I'm done. Okay? But here's the thing. You know, it really bothers me to see how we have gone this way. And we have gone so divided. We're one town. We've been one town for a long time. And we need to fix this as a town. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And I will say, if we're going to be disrespectful in the audience, we will be ending the meeting shortly. Everybody has a chance to get up and speak, and nobody has the right to tell somebody that their opinions are not okay or correct. Everybody has an opinion, and they should be allowed to voice it. So I am very happy to continue this question and answer if there's somebody else that'd like to speak.
Even our president, right?
Yes, even our president. Yes, sir.
My name's Charles Brown, and contrary to what was said by the last speaker, I am not an absentee property owner. I live at 122 Old Village Lane. So the thing for me is this Corps of Engineer project is a no-brainer to be a part of. And if North Topsail Beach cannot make that happen, then as a property owner in Phase 5, I want to find a way to make it happen. And if the way to make it happen is to join with Surf City, then I'm all for it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Robert Box. I live at 125 South Bermuda Wind. To me, I do support annexation. To me and our family, this is a legacy issue. We have been living here for 18 years. We had traveled up from Charleston to Cape Hatteras looking for a place at the beach. We were struck with the beauty of North Topsail Beach. We moved here. We're property owners. We are not full-time residents. We're about 1 year away from retirement, in which case we will. And I'm not thrilled that I'm hearing that our interests don't count, even though we have paid 100% property taxes, and for us alone, at least $100,000 over the time that we've been here. But legacy, the Corps of Engineers 50-year project, we've been hearing about it for over 10 years, and this is game-changing. This will preserve the legacy, the beauty of the beaches. For us, it's not about property values. We don't care about that. We're never going to sell the house. We've raised 5 kids to adulthood. We have the next generation of grandkids. This is home. We will never sell. So it's part of our personal legacy, and it's part of the legacy of the beaches that if we miss this window, it will not come again. And the beach nourishment that was appreciated back in 2014 and prior didn't last. And it's not the 50-year cycle that we have. And if Surf City does care about the future and the legacy of the beaches, we would like to align with Surf City, who's thinking of the future, and be a part of Surf City.
Hi, my name is Dr. Charlene Wade. I live at 107 Old Village Lane. Our beaches contribute significantly to the tourism industry sector in this state. I have traveled my career all over the U.S. People have asked me, why are you here? We all want to go to North Carolina. It's beautiful there. I want to keep it beautiful. I support annexation because if this is the only way to take care of a problem that seems to arise every other year with a 50-year project, it just makes sense. Short-term fixes are the equivalent of shooting yourself in the foot before you run a race. It's not going to work, and it's money ill spent. I do support my neighbors, my friends, because our dunes are cliffs. My husband has Parkinson's. He cannot get to the beach. What does that say to the tourists that come in? They're going to find another place to go. And I think you have compromised the economy of our town and of the state. I want to know, have you considered the impact? Because it's going to impact not just us, but the counties on either side of us, as well as our good friends in Raleigh and the entire state. I've lived in all 3 regions of this state, and I've never seen such a mess by government.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning. Thank you, Representative, for being here today. So my name is John Gay. I live at 102 Old Village Lane, Village of Stump Sound, and I'm the husband of who you all might know as the keyboard warrior, Kelly Musico Gay. And so that's the reason why we're all here today. Thank you. Thank you for coming. But I'm here to represent both of our interests. We, like many taxpayers of North Topsail Beach, feel that NTB lacks in all areas of transparency, and this meeting is a perfect example of one of those. Providing 1 week's notice of a meeting of such a serious nature, annexation, was not enough time for many like my wife to be able to attend. My wife started on this notion of annexation not only because of the lack of transparency, but the lack of planning by this town's leadership, both past and present. The notion of North Topsail Beach passing on a 50-year federal beach nourishment project because we are broke is actually understandable. But knowing that Surf City is moving forward and planned for the worst-case scenario left those of us in Phase 5 wondering why our leadership hadn't done the same. Surf City's mayor, Doug Medlin, was quoted in the Port City Daily that he was apprehensive when he found out the two towns would be lumped in one, because he knew North Topsail Beach would leave Surf City holding the bag. He stated, and I quote, "I guess because they didn't have an awful great track record as far as financing." That is an important statement because it shows the long history of the lack of transparency, the lack of planning, and the lack of trust that we have in our government. A book entitled America's Most Vulnerable Coastal Communities, written by experts on coastal matters, dedicated a section to, and I quote, "Vulnerability increased by poor political decisions." The focus was, and you guessed it, North Topsail Beach, sir. North Topsail Beach has become the most developed COBRA unit in the nation. Phase 5 is the only non-COBRA section of North Topsail Beach.
Sir, that's not accurate.
And we do not belong as part of North Topsail Beach. There's small sections of Phase 1, thank you. The book discusses much more about beach projects and the bad decisions I won't go into today. But no, our town is neck deep in already. These are projects that we do not support, but we know that our leadership will find a way to fund them, leaving Phase 5 holding the bag. The town's differences are very vast for this town to even manage. Representative Phil Shepard, my wife and I asked for discussion with you directly. 2.5, 3 minutes of time is not enough time to discuss all the topics and the importance. So Phase 5 is non-COBRA, just like Surf City. Annex us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to say in response to that, this town board is not responsible for this meeting. I was the one, because we were doing redistricting, trying to finalize the budget and get all that money out that we need to have to municipalities, and there is a lot of money in the watershed fund for beaches and so forth. So it had to be when I could get out of Raleigh, when this staff could get out of Raleigh to have this meeting. So I said, I want to do this. I want those people to be able to come, share their thoughts, and let us share what the law says about de-annexation, what it says about annexation, and just clear the air. So I'm responsible for having the meeting so soon because that was the quickest time I could get out of Raleigh and get this done. So it's not their fault, but anyway, that's my fault. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Dave McKee, 155 Old Village Lane. Representative Shepard, thank you for coming here today. I appreciate it. One of the things we talked about was financing this. Before the votes were taken, there was a recommendation, including by my wife and myself, about paid parking. We accepted paid parking and we put it year-round all over North Topsail Beach. And I don't know what the number is, but I think it was a pretty good windfall for North Topsail Beach, probably equal to the 0.5% we were trying to get from Onslow County. Now, there's another area of finance. Everybody here got a reevaluation in the last couple of weeks. Whoo-wee! I don't know about you guys, but mine went up significantly. Again, another windfall for North Topsail Beach. I'm not complaining about paying for it because I want the beautiful beaches up here, the town, to be nice. That's why I moved here. And I just want to make sure that all of those angles, Representative, are looked at. You and I spoke 8 or 10 months ago, and we were talking about the $10 million as well as the percentages from Onslow County. Those two things, the parking and the reevaluation, that's a pretty big windfall for North Topsail, and another look should be taken. Thank you.
I would like to respond to the reevaluations. I'm not sure if you all have seen information that Onslow County has put out, but at this point in time, the reevaluations are focused on the value of the properties. They have not stated that the tax rate remains the same. What they have stated is that during the budget cycle, the same with North Topsail Beach, the tax rates will be established. I have seen documentation come out from Onslow County that says their goal is to keep people's tax rates close to what they are today, as far as value, not tax rates, but the amount that you pay. your actual tax bill. So while your value may have gone up, your tax rate may come down. And that is not yet known because it hasn't been voted or discussed during their budget. So just because your value is more, don't assume that your tax bill is going to double, is the point I'm making today.
I'd like to make one other comment. When I first went to Raleigh, I had people call me. You guys were trying to raise some funds then to do something. That was 2010 and 11. And I was supportive of what you were trying to do, my first term there. And I had many people that don't live here, but they have rental property here. Two couples from Cary. And they didn't want their taxes raised at all. But yet their rental property was how they were making their income. And I thought, that's a sad commentary, because you ever look at the tax rate in Cary and compare it to North Topsail Beach. I just want to throw that out there because some people, they make money here, but they don't want to give anything as far as making it better. And if you don't have a beach, I agree with you all. I think we all do. It's just trying to find the funding mechanism that can get what we want to done, and that's get the engineered beach. I'm 100% supportive of that, and anything that we can do to do that. But at that point in time, this town had so much debt that the local government committee would not approve for them to go into any more, and we certainly they didn't want to raise property taxes on you all. You guys are paying it all now, pretty much. There's just not businesses here, a lot of businesses on North Topsail Beach, and that's a sad commentary. Because Surf City, they've got Publix, they got grocery stores. I mean, they go all the way out on Highway 17. So, they've got all that sales tax revenue that you guys don't have. But I'm willing, my door's open, this staff is willing. Any of the questions we didn't answer today, we'll try to get those answered for you. As far as 100% or 60%, at one time it was 60% of the residents had to approve that. The de-annexation has to be approved by the town council needs to look at that, and then we need to look at it and go from there. I would like for us to, and I know you guys are frustrated, as I am also. I was really frustrated with my own people because we couldn't get you that 1% sales tax to go toward this engineered project. But that's another thing. I tell you what I'd like to see, if we can get that back on the agenda, get Connie Wilson and all of us working together, I'd like to see all of you come up there. I mean, but we do care. I do care. Dennis has got something he wants to say.
Just real quick, because, I haven't been involved in this for a long time, but just listening today, it occurs to me we're in front of the wrong entity. This North Topsail group of people is a very small municipality when you compare it to Onslow County as a whole. I hear a bigger problem with how Onslow County takes care of this municipality than I do this municipality. Because as we said, if we were with Pender, and I don't recall the numbers, but it sounds like the funding that came back to this entity would be much higher. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Sounds like we need to be talking to the Onslow County Commissioners. That's probably the best place to put your effort. This in the big picture of money, this is the small group. Onslow County, the state, that's going to be your best place to find the funding. And it was to this gentleman's point, the funding issue to me seems to be a much bigger issue in Onslow County. You need to take your cars and drive up there and have a discussion with the Onslow County Commissioners about what's happening here as opposed to beating up these people. They have a small budget to work with. They are not going to solve your problem. Unless funding comes from outside through the state or the county, you can stand here all day in front as you like in front of these people. Without the funds, they will never get there.
And that is one of the reasons that we as a board, along with Representative Shepard, have spoken with Onslow County about changing the distribution to be more in line with Pender County. They just were not able to accommodate that based on their budget, but we have expressed the desire to have the same financial consideration as Pender County. Yes, sir.
And I wanted to follow up on the gentleman's comment on yours as well, Mayor, because the guy standing next to you has done a lot behind the scenes to work with the Onslow County Commissioners. Both Phil and Michael Lazara have tried to work with the commissioners to get them to bend a bit on how they allocate occupancy taxes for our benefit. We have a problem up there. It's gotten better over time, but it seems that It's like shifting winds out here, you know. Sometimes we're all, you know, we go up and we have these meetings and we're glaring at each other across the table and we get nothing. And sometimes, you know, they're different and we might get $100,000, but, you know, they're throwing us a bone and they're yanking about $1 million a year, I think, out of here in occupancy taxes. And it's at least $1 million a year, and I know that it's very similar in what we're getting for paid parking back. But something's got to change with the county. That's the big thing. Something's got to change with the county, and they need to stop treating North Topsail Beach like a cash cow.
Anybody else like to speak? I know that Representative Shepard has a stop about 11 o'clock, so I just want to make sure everybody who would like to speak gets an opportunity to.
But now staff is going to stay. If you have any questions for them, they're going to stay, and I appreciate you guys doing that. I promised you I'd take you to Riverview, so we'll do that another day for lunch. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm Will Arganbright. I live at 160 Dolph Everett Road in Holly Ridge. I don't live in North Topsail, but I've got a vested interest here. I've got family that lives here in North Topsail, and when my in-laws bought their property, they were fourth row. They're second row now due to beach erosion. So this is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. When listening to people talk about the county and what they could have done either better or different, I've got a couple of questions for you. Representative Shepard, first of all, thank you for being here today. What's the deadline that there is for the engineer project?
That has already passed.
It's already passed. So this is the opportunity is gone. It's not going to come back up. What could have the county? First of all, let's just talk about Onslow County. What could the county have done differently to help support this?
Well, so the county cannot magically change their budget on a whim either. So I think if years ago we were able to align with the county to have a similar distribution of our occupancy taxes as we have with Pender County, then that would have put us at a much better financial position to be able to look at affording the federal project.
Right. So my understanding is that Topsail makes up 6% of the property or the tourism tax, the occupancy tax for Onslow County. You receive 3% of that back, so half of what you give goes back to you. About 64% is made up by Jacksonville, and I say that because North Topsail Beach is number 6 in the state for beaches for tourism. The only draw that Jacksonville has for tourism is Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune and the surrounding bases, which are already self-sustaining. When we're talking about allocating funds back to the municipalities, I think it's very, very vital that we take a look at what is actually the need to sustain the percentages that we're giving versus what we're trying to pretend is actually the cash cow, which was Jacksonville, but it's not. Second question is, what could a partnership, or is there a possibility of a partnership between a Pender and Onslow County to complete a project like this?
Sounds like a good idea, but it'd be up to the county commissioners in each county to.
So just so everyone knows, we're in an election cycle. If you're not happy with how the county's been managing things, you've got an opportunity to put 3 new members on the board. Thank you.
I appreciate your time, sir.
I'm going to have to leave shortly. I got a funeral to conduct in Jacksonville in about 45 minutes. But I wanted to share with you, I have sort of a vested interest in this because my grandmother was from Stump Sound. Her family settled Topsail Beach in 1737, and a lot of them still live in that area. I have a cousin in California that owns 2 lots in Surf City that's been in our family since 1737. I was born and raised here. I was born in 1954. 1954, Hazel came through. This part of the beach wasn't developed at all. It was just a real pristine area, no development at all, North Topsail. Topsail and Surf City was developed at that time. When Hazel came through, it left everything flat. There was nothing left at Surf City or Topsail in 1954. I hope and pray we don't ever have another one of those that come through here because it would be disastrous. But I want to say to you, my door is still open. I'm willing to work and do whatever we can in Raleigh to facilitate getting this done. The engineered beach, I'm telling you, some of us beat our heads to death over that issue because of the way that the tourism tax is distributed, and that restaurant and lodging people don't support that method of doing what we wanted to do. But anyway, I'm still here. I appreciate the opportunity to come and listen to you. I understand your frustrations, and I wish I could have done more. I tell people all the time, I'll do what I can do, and I work hard for people in Onslow County, but sometimes you just can't get past the hump because of other bureaucracy. So I appreciate your time. Thank you for allowing us to be. Corey, I appreciate y'all coming.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, there goes one of my questions anyway. I've owned since '96, I think, or whatever it was after Hurricane Fran came by is when I purchased. At that time, or soon thereafter, there was a beach renourishment plan developed, where that was what established the 5 phases that we're referring to. And then we did the Phase 1 renourishment, and then I think as a target of opportunity, took out the loan and did Phase 5. We jumped to Phase 5. But the original plan was to start at Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, with a sustainment plan, and finally get to Phase 5. I'd like to know why that plan was abandoned.
Well, sir, we can answer that if you'd like.
Okay.
That's not 100% accurate what your thought process was, but I'd like to ask Mayor Pro Tem to talk about that original plan, and also if these folks don't know about your committee, your beach committee, I'd like them to know that too, because they may want to be involved in that. His question was, what happened to our initial beach plan that was from Phase 1 to Phase 5? He thought we were supposed to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and why did we skip from 1 to 5? And what are we doing as far as a plan today?
No, I understand why we skipped from 1 to 5. It was an opportunity. But why did we abandon the follow-on?
And that's what I'd like to
okay.
speak to. We didn't abandon the plan. I think you'll be able to explain that, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, we do have a 30-year plan, and Division of Coastal Management wants each town to have, a beach management plan. And ours is about 7 or 8 years old or older. And it did go down the beach, just like you described, to nourish each section. Of course, in the Phase 2 through 4, being in Cobra, there is no federal money allotted if there is a storm that takes sand away from the flat part of the beach. FEMA will help you restore the dunes to protect the infrastructure behind the dunes, but FEMA will not pay to build a flat beach for us to walk on, so forth. Okay, that's the difference between Cobra and non-Cobra area. Whereas in Phase 5, that's not in Cobra, so FEMA will allow what's called a Category G project, which in this case, this year we're putting 636,000 cubic yards of sand on the beach, not in the dunes, on the beach in Phase 5, 636,000 cubic yards. About 44,000 dump trucks are coming from Castle Hayne across the Surf City Bridge to put that sand on the beach. 44,000 trucks to hold in just Phase 5, okay?
But those are FEMA dollars, right?
We're rebuilding the beach.
It's FEMA repayment, but if the town pays first. So
Right.
it's coming
I know,
from
but
the
it's
town's
reimbursed.
fund. It will be reimbursed.
Okay.
Yes, by FEMA.
Right.
Let him finish.
Okay.
And so the Phase 5 project originally in 215 put 1.2 million cubic yards of sand on that beach. We're getting 636,000 cubic yards of sand back to replace that 1.2 million that was put on the beach back in 214, 215. So we're basically going to be back to where we were when we finished the Phase 5 project and 214, 215. Now, the Army Corps project, their project called for 4 million cubic yards of sand in that same area. All right? The town took out a loan for about $17 million to put 1.2 million cubic yards of sand in Phase 5. We're working to pay off that debt today. All right? To put 4 million cubic yards of sand in Phase 5, North Topsail Beach share is $33.7 million. Our share, the town, not the federal government, not the state, the town's share, almost $34 million. We had trouble financing a $15 million beach project in Phase 5. How in the world are we going to have enough resources to come up our little town with a $6 million general fund and $3 million coming into the beach fund each year from all the revenue sources? How can we put $33 million into a project? The tax, like the mayor said, triple the tax rate. Like former Alderman Leonard said, triple the tax rate. It was just a no-brainer. We could not afford it. You could not afford it as residents, property owners here. It just couldn't be afforded. So that's why this board basically had to not join the partnership agreement that Surf City did join. Their revenue situation is completely different in Surf City than it is in North Topsail Beach. Okay? So we are working, we did form a new beach inlet and sound advisory committee so that we can start thinking strategically in the future and plan for future projects up and down the beach, all 5 phases. And I would encourage any of you that are interested in following the work of that committee that you would be here on March 22nd, which will be our next regular monthly meeting in the morning right here in Town Hall. So we would take any comments that you'd like to give about our committee's work and what we're doing at that time. But basically, the answer to the question is we just don't, you as taxpayers cannot afford, we couldn't tax you enough to pay for the federal project.
And also, I want to just add on, the beach committee that Mayor Pro Tem had mentioned does have representation from every phase of North Topsail Beach. So if it's something and they're open meetings, so you're certainly welcome to come. You're welcome, as he said, to give comments and be a part of that process as it moves forward.
You know what time that is?
10:30 on March 22nd.
And you can find information on our website also.
It's on the town shoreline protection webpage, has the information about this new committee, the meeting schedule, and so forth and so on. So if you're interested, it's right there on the town's website.
Yes, sir. Did you want to continue?
Yeah, my second question really deals with the prior loan. According to Tom Leonard, it was 16 million. Somebody said 17 million. We currently still have a 16 million balance.
It's about 16 million is the balance.
So my question is really in the years since that loan was taken out, why haven't we paid off more of that loan when we could have done it with more modest increases in taxes and paid it off and been much better financially?
And that's why this board had hired a financial company to assist us with making budgetary decisions. Prior to this board, we didn't have that in place, and he's the one that helped us come up with financing strategies that will allow us to repay that debt much sooner than initially planned. And we saved like $1 million, yes, with the refinancing. Go ahead,
Robert
sir.
Box again. You know, the tall gentleman that was back here with the Bojangles Cup, you know, he was talking about we have a small budget in North Topsail. But, you know, the common ground that we all have, all residents in North Topsail Beach, is we want to preserve our beaches. In a 50-year project, if we could participate, we would. That's a no-brainer. But if, you know, what I'm a businessman, and so I know about balancing budgets. And 33 million, you know, given our tax base, does sound daunting. But, where you've heard the residents from Phase 5 say, we want to annex to Surf City because, we want to have the 50-year plan. In this discussion, if we knew internally that this Corps of Engineers project just didn't spring up on us, and if we saw that there's no way North Topsail Beach can fund $33 million because it has grown to that amount, why didn't we reach out to the county to start changing that, knowing that this was coming versus, sort of at the last minute we pull out?
So the Corps of Engineers didn't know this was going to be approved or coming that quickly. They thought that we were down on the list and then magically at the top. So nobody saw the approval for this federal project coming when it did. It wasn't like we had a foresight of, in 3 years we expect you're going to be approved. It just happened.
Well, okay, so I appreciate the clarification, but, we know de-annexation and annexation, is a tall order to get 100% residents. Not that my vote counts because I'm not here full time, but, we should be moving down a different path to get funding because the beach problem is not going to go away.
And we are continuing to work with Onslow County. We have a very good relationship with Onslow County right now, and we're going to continue down that path to see, as Representative Shepard said, is there still anything else we could do to increase occupancy taxes? Is there anything we could do to have a larger share come back to us? It is budget time now, so it's the appropriate time to continue those conversations. Sir, you can speak from there if you'd like. I don't want to have to make you walk all the way over. So it's not that the town has given up. It's at the time we were forced to make a decision and we did not have the funding available to approve that decision. And as Alderman Leonard said, we also didn't have the ability legally to raise the tax rate through the whole entire town to the amount it would have been needed to be raised to pay for the project.
I understand that.
Okay.
And, again, we all come to the town, we all gladly pay 100% of the taxes, even though we're part-time
Understand.
residents, because of the beaches. And if the beaches go away, there's nothing.
And
there.
nobody on the board is disagreeing with anything that you're saying.
Okay. The urgency is there. You're hearing from, a lot of the property owners here and future full-time residents. We need to get moving, and we need to get moving fast.
And the board we don't disagree. And I'm glad that the Village of Stump Sound came out today to speak with us. I will say that most of the letters or comments we're getting are specifically from this one neighborhood, and there is a large community outside of the Village of Stump Sound in Phase 5.
And we're also a very large tax base.
I'm not
right.
arguing with you. I'm
Right.
just saying it would be helpful as a board if we heard from more of the community outside of just one neighborhood as well.
Well, one thing that would be helpful is y'all commented, and so did Phil Shepard, comment that we had a really large turnout. Where were we previously?
Yeah, I said that.
Okay, sorry, Your Honor. The fact is, these meetings aren't transparent enough. And what I mean by that is Zoom calls.
We just had an open house. We just had a
But what does
beach
that mean?
workshop on Saturday. Well, the open house was just to see the new building, but we were all here. We just had a beach workshop that was open to the whole public to go through in detail with our engineers, all of the projects that are planned. It was open, it was question and answer just like this one was. We did have a nice turnout for that. But we really didn't have a lot of residents from Phase 5 attend that meeting. I think we had one person or two, one who happens to be on the new committee that was formed. So all I'm saying is I know it's hard to get to the meetings, but even just reaching out to your board members, if you've got questions, we can make sure it gets covered in the meetings if you're not able to attend.
Yeah, okay, so the request from many in Phase 5 is that we have it open, for the 2022, which means Zoom capabilities. We have been in a 2-year pandemic, and not everyone lives here. We live in a lot of states. We had a meeting 2 days ago for Phase 5. That was a Zoom call. I live in Charlotte. I'm driving 8 hours round trip just to be here this morning, where a Zoom call, we could have actually had much greater participation.
And I can follow up with our town manager on that. I don't know from a municipality perspective if there are restrictions that, I don't see any of our local municipalities having their board meetings over Zoom. They're streamed, but it does,
But
I
you
don't
can't
think it allows
participate.
for that
Right.
interaction. And so what I'm saying is I don't know that that's a North Topsail Beach thing. I'd like to follow up and see if there are legal rules
In North
around
Carolina, they do it, because we do it in Charlotte, we do it for HOAs, we own many properties.
HOAs are not municipalities.
No, also
though.
municipalities were able
Okay.
to participate by Zoom calls, so I don't
Okay.
think it's a state thing, but
We
it
can follow
could
up.
be a county or region.
Yeah, no, we could, I'm happy to follow up, sir.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'd like to come back to the point that the speaker made about it being a 50-year project, a federal project, 50 years, okay? $34 billion to get started. That's called the New Start construction. In 6 years, you do a renourishment cycle every 6 years, okay? We don't know how much sand would be lost between the time the $34 million was spent to construct the project. But in 6 years, whatever sand is missing from what was put there originally is going to be put back. And that's going to be millions of more dollars. We don't have any idea because it's up to Mother Nature, but it's going to be millions of more dollars every 6 years. So it's not just a one-time deal. It's 50 years, as the speaker said.
And from what I remember, they would, down in the Wilmington area, they had a renourishment cycle that was to come up this past year. And that got skipped because the funding was not there to do it. So it's not a guarantee, I guess is what I'm saying, every 6 years that the funding's there. Sir, did you want to speak?
Yes, I did. Mayor Pro Tem asked the question, $33 million, how can we possibly make that happen? And there's an answer to that. We can make that happen by annexing to Surf City. And that fixes it.
It doesn't, sir. So you're, as Representative Shepard went through, Surf City would have to be willing to take all of Phase 5, and again, we have representation mostly from just one neighborhood in Phase 5 here today. So all of Phase 5, they'd have to be willing to take. They'd have to be willing to take on the $16 million left in debt that we still have from those beaches that the rest of the town is paying for. They'd also have to be willing to come up with the additional $33 million, I think Mayor Pro Tem had said, plus the ongoing nourishment costs. So I'm not saying they won't do that. I'm saying that those conversations, in my brief conversations with them, it wasn't something that they have been investigating doing.
So you're saying that you haven't made that arrangement.
I have
You haven't gotten that to work.
I have talked with Surf City briefly about this conversation, but again, to have a serious conversation with Surf City, I'd like to make sure that we even meet anything that we need to be able to be talking to them about annexation.
So those are things that can happen.
The conversation can happen. It doesn't
Right.
mean that Surf City is willing to take your debt.
Right. You haven't gotten an
I have had
agreement.
high-level conversations with them, and they did not raise their hand to take the debt.
Right. But the answer to the question of what possible way could there be to make this happen? The answer is, yeah, annexation is a possible path and it could work. And so I was just trying to answer the question, where can we possibly get the $33 million? Where can we possibly make this project move forward? And when I keep hearing from Representative Shepard that he'll do anything to make this happen, and anything could include the state legislature making an annexation through the state legislature, because this is a statewide issue a statewide benefit, I think that that's a real possibility and something that should be on the list of things that we look at. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Sandy Confair. I live on 2740 Island Drive. I am in the Ocean City part of the beach. And currently, right now, a lot of those homes are either deserted because the family members can't afford to fix them after Florence. Probably there's only in that whole section of the town, there's probably only 5 people that live there permanently, if there's even that many. I mean, I know around my house, I mean, I'm right on the corner of Island and Gray, so I see those trucks every day, but there is nobody that lives around me. They are vacant or they're rentals. And the people that rent them, they don't care about what the beach looks like. All they care about is getting their monthly, weekly rent. So that's why there's nobody here from the Ocean City section, because nobody lives there. So me, as a permanent resident there, I'm in favor, but then I'm not in favor. I don't want to be de-annexed, because I don't want to have the police service. I don't want to not have a fire department. How long does it take once you're de-annexed to become annexed, to be part of Surf City? How long would we be without those services? Personally, I love the fire department right across the street from me. I love the firemen right across the street from me. They know me personally. I am Sandy in the blue house. They watch out for me because they know I live there by myself in an area where there is nobody around, so they watch for me. So how long would it take to become annexed if we de-annexed? I mean, that's a question everybody should ask. Do we want to be without these services? I don't, but I want the beach to be healthy. I love living here. When I came to visit my son, I fell in love with Topsail, and I said, one day I will live there. So we need to do something to fix the beaches. So,
And we are working on that, ma'am. Thank you very much, though.
thank you.
You know, ma'am, this is nature's tranquil beauty here in North Topsail Beach, and we're going to keep it that way. So thank you for your comments.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak before we move on? Okay, so the other item that I wanted to just do briefly, as I had mentioned, we did have a beach workshop just a couple weeks ago where we went in great detail, and every board meeting, the town manager as well as the engineer gives an update on where we are with our beach projects. I wanted to just ask our town manager, Ms. Darian, if she wouldn't mind, just at a high level, so you all know what's going on if you haven't been paying attention as to what we all are doing.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I know that a lot of you are interested in the Phase 5 area, so I'll mainly discuss the Phase 5 project going on right now. As I'm sure you're aware of all the trucks coming across the bridge on the North Topsail, ST Wooten, the town's contractor, started the Phase 5 truck haul project February 18th. They've been hauling sand daily from Monday through Friday. They're accessing the beach on the Gray Street access, heading north. Right now, they're going to be hitting approximately 1,000 feet of the shoreline, working through April 30th. And the reason why they'll be pausing on April 30th is because that's our environmental window period that we could do projects on the beach. Once that project is paused, we will once again resume, of course, after turtle season in November, where we will pick up, start the project again, and that's where we anticipate going more into the area where you're all seem to be positioned in the Stump Sound area. So that's when you can expect to see beach sand on that particular part of the beach. And this is not a dune project like our past projects have been. This is placing sand on the active beach, so it will be sand on the beach, extending the area for recreation.
Can we also hit on the planning of the Sea Oats? I know that that is a big question I get every day.
Sure. We are planning to start with the Sea Oat planning for dunes May 1st. Our town engineer has been back and forth, just confirming daily almost, just to make sure we're on schedule for that. Anywhere you did not see sea oats planted from last season, they will be going through and finishing those areas that were not touched last season, and we will be planting sprigs on all of the dune areas going through the season.
And I think it was brought up by Sandy, you brought it up, that Phase 5 did not have the sea oats planted after the dune restoration last time.
that's correct.
And it was the board's desire to make sure that that area is not missed this time. So that is something that Alice has been working on.
Yes,
Yep,
and we
yep.
will be going back those areas where you see the gaps where you pointed out when I was down in the area when the project started. We will be going back and retouching those areas.
Okay,
Just so
thank
you're
you.
aware.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you
Sure.
for taking my question. I'm just curious. I know that there's been some design going on in phase 1 for the growing project. Could you tell us where you're at on that?
They're still in the, working on the draft, to get to the draft phase for the EIS. So we have not heard back from the Army Corps of Engineers yet. I talked to the engineer for an update this morning. We don't have a time frame yet. We're simply waiting on them.
And that's the
And
environmental
it's-
study. That is not a design of a groin.
Yeah, and they're going through, right now, we have to go through the process where they reach out to all the environmental agencies to get all of their input. So right now, they're receiving all that input, and that's when they'll prepare the draft. for
And
us
one
to
of the big issues that I see as far as how this gets communicated out, what they're going to present back to the Board of Aldermen is there's 5 options, from do nothing to a terminal groin. They're going to present back to us what they feel the best option is. That, as Alice said, it's going to take years for it to get to that point. And at that point, whatever the solution is, the board would vote on whether they want to go forward with the permit process or not. So there is no special fund. I see that all the time. There is no special fund for the groin. We have one beach fund. Those financials are available for anybody to see at any point in time. Caitlin, you just make an appointment, you can go look, there's one beach fund. And so the more people that could get engaged and follow this beach committee, this is the committee that will be making recommendations back to the board as well for projects in the future. Having all phases of the town represented there is a huge thing. We all need to start working together to avoid this in the future. Any other questions on the beach projects? Yes, sir.
I just had a quick question. I understand why you have to stop April, but what was the thinking to just totally avoid south of Gray Street, and you're going to pick it up again in November, as opposed to spread as much as you can between the entire beach up until April and finish it later?
The town engineer, they do an assessment to determine where to start. I will say, because of state permitting requirements, I know that when you think about the project, you think that, if we could just put more sand covering more area of the beach, but because of permitting requirements, we could only touch one area of the beach one time. So we have to go in sections. That's why they proceed in sections.
So you had to get a permit
Correct, from the state.
from the state. So the state essentially is rolling the dice that the people who live south of Gray Street, when the hurricane comes during hurricane season, it's just going to go north of Gray Street. Is that what the permit department has decided?
No, the state does not decide that. It's based on studies that are done by our town engineer.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, then I want to thank everybody.
Joanne?
Yes, sir? Oh, I'm sorry, I
Mayor,
didn't see you.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Just one more comment,
Yes, sir.
please, if I could. Moving forward, yes. You know, what's really disturbing is that, and, part of my speech, of course, is that, when you go to the North Topsail Beach website and you learn about this meeting, thank you for doing this for us, but, you read to promote transparency. on the meeting agenda right here. So why does the North Topsail, why do we have to say that? To promote transparency,
Where do you see that? I don't see that on my meeting agenda.
right here on the meeting agenda,
It's on the notice, okay.
right?
I
I mean, shouldn't there already be transparency?
I feel that there is
Okay.
transparency.
So, I mean,
but,
I don't know
you
why we have to say that then.
Maybe that, remember, this
Thank
is
you.
not our meeting. Maybe Representative Shepard wanted to make sure we could promote transparency regarding the annexation issue, which is why he came today to speak to you all.
And if I may speak to that, Mayor, every special meeting notice states that, which is linked to the agenda to promote transparency. If it's a special meeting, we attach the agenda so that they can see what topics will be discussed. Because with special meetings, you're not allowed to go outside of those topics. So we always try to publish the agenda with it.
Okay, thank you. That was helpful. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. If you're looking at the beach right now, the bigger issue are the dunes. They look like they've been cut with a chainsaw, and the drop-offs are unbelievably high. This sand doesn't seem as though it's going to be able to address any of that. What is going to be done to address that factor?
So this is one of the reasons why I wish that we had some additional folks attend the beach workshop that just happened a few weeks ago. And Mayor Pro Tem, you may have additional comments. But what the engineer stated in that meeting, and I'm going to paraphrase, is that the sand is never going to stay exactly where we put it. It's going to go back into the system, and it's going to either go near shore or on the dry sand beach. And as waves come and go, it is going to equilibrate, I think he said. So you will, and it's not always going to be a cliff, but the nature is going to also help that. We could continue to put sand on the dune every week, and it's not going to stay as it is. Some days you will see that you'll have a cliff out there. Other days you're going to see a slope. So I don't know if you disagree.
Well,
Yeah.
this particular nor'easter that we suffered earlier this year, or in late of last year, this is pretty severe. And it seems as though something specifically should address that factor.
We've been talking with the engineer about that. I'm not sure what you're referring to as far as what specifically could address that factor, but nature is going to take its course no matter what we do. We continue to put sand there. It's never going to stay exactly where we put it.
I just thought possibly putting it closer to the dunes would, I don't know.
It's going to move. It's not going to stay it's never going to stay exactly where we put it, ever. And that's a lot of the complaints I do see, is that we just got sand and now it's, we've had a storm and now it's gone. It's not gone. It's in the system. It's helping the waves break out farther because it went near shore. There is a whole reason for doing it the way the engineer maps it out.
But now, we're not going to be getting any of that sand until next November.
But again, please don't assume that it's going to stay exactly where we put it. So you may have some come down there. Anybody else before we go ahead?
One of the major things we gotta do, when they put sand on the beach, is we gotta put fencing up, we gotta get the plants planted, and the winds, I've been here for 20 years, the winds will bring the sand also up to the dunes. And if we got fencing there, I have fencing, and I probably got 5 feet of sand built up against that fencing and my dune. I'm in phase 5 just like you guys are. I'm up the upper end though. But we gotta maintain those beaches, we gotta maintain the fencing, the planting, and that's the only thing we could really do as far as people go. But if we have fencing here and no fencing three people down, it's not gonna work. We all have to share together.
Mm-hmm.
We all have to get those fencing up. That's the way it works.
Yeah, it can be very frustrating when you are looking at oceanfront and you'll have a stretch of folks that have really done a great job planting their dunes and putting sand fencing up, and then you have a stretch that have done nothing. And so if we could all work together to make sure that that is a consistent from all the way up north, all the way south, which is why the town is planting this year, all the sand that's going on to the berm structure. That would also significantly help everybody. Yes, ma'am.
So perhaps as the mayor, you could encourage the town property owners on the ocean front to do sand fencing.
I do.
And I haven't seen anything telling everybody to put up fencing, and I haven't seen anything making it easier for them to do it. So perhaps in the way that in the past we've done, we can have Sea Oats, so you can buy them, get them at town hall, whatever. You could have a contractor who would be prepared to fence your property, because a lot of people don't, and if they're not urged from an official, perhaps they won't. It doesn't, if we don't all know the people who own property in our neighborhood, just 2 houses down or 3 houses down, but you have a way to contact everybody.
We do.
That would be great.
That's great. That's a great comment. We'll take that under advisement.
Thank
Let
you.
me just build on that for a second. Okay, so our house was destroyed in the last hurricane, right? So we had to rebuild from the very beginning, from top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
The house was built in the 90s. Building codes changed.
Mm-hmm.
We had to be up to code.
Mm-hmm.
So could the town, starting on new construction, when somebody buys a house, make that part of the code if you're on beachfront, that you have to have fencing?
That's something that we can look at, sir.
Because if they don't have the fencing, you don't get a C of O.
I
Make it
understand.
a town requirement.
We can take a look at that. That's good
Please.
feedback. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I am going to ask if there's a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? All in favor? And I want to thank you all for coming from Mr. Shepard's office today.
And just for one little comment, if you need anything, my door's always open. You could give me a call.
What's that? Why was Surf City not invited to this meeting?
And then, yeah, they weren't, I mean, Kyle was here.
That's an important part of
Birthday party, and we're see you around. Here's my card. If you have anything, just call me. One time.
It's good to meet you. I saw your sign.
19 months provided by the town.
That I'm working on. I am working on it.
50%. 50-50. We used to pick it up across from the fire station.
Yeah. So, we've got the clip. We've got the clip. Right?
Once they put the sand in,
I know. I'm right north of the campground. Campground doesn't put fencing up. But I did. Well, I got all their sand. So, I mean, I lost 2/3 of my dues during, should have cleaned this up.